Good day, everyone, and Salaam Alaikum. On behalf of Global Enterprise Connect, I welcome all the attendees to this episode of CXOWIRE. I'm pleased to welcome with us Ashish Panjabi, who's the COO of Jacky's Business Solution, Sanjay Bhagwan Babur, who is the CEO of Cosmos Insurance Brokers, and also importantly, serves on the board of TIE Dubai as Director of Memberships. Ashish, you have managing multiple businesses, including the business solutions of Jacky's, the retail and organic foods, amongst others. Plus, I see a new business. So why don't you just give us a summary of what is your day-to-day job role like, and what are the high points right now? Which of your products is coming into the limelight based on the last 60 days of external macro environment change? Go ahead, Ashish.
Thank you, Arun, and thank you for having me here. Good to be on this show with Sanjay and yourself. So we have our retail electronics business in that we run a lot of the stores for Samsung over here in the shopping malls, as well as we operate our own multi-brand concept called Jacky's Brand Shop, which is both online as well as in physical stores. We've got a store in the Dubai Hills Mall and another one coming up shortly in Burj as well. We've also got the Jacky's B2B side of things, the business solutions, where we are doing things in terms of queuing systems, robotics. We work on the device side of the business with Microsoft, Apple, Samsung, and many others. And we've seen quite a lot of activity in that area. And then organic foods in other businesses. And then we're now moving into a logistics business, which should kick off later this year. We've got a new facility under construction in NIP, the National Industries Park, and have that coming into place shortly. In addition to that, I'm also a charter member at TIE. Sanjay and I both are parts of TIE, and serve also on the board of the Electronics Group, which is a consortium of all the electronics distributors, retailers, e-commerce providers, and other service players within the electronics industry in Dubai, which works under the auspices of Dubai Chamber of Commerce, and also a member of the Dubai Computer Group and a former board member over there as well. So what we've seen in the last 60 days, if you ask me, is retail continues. People are in the malls. Malls are busy. People are shopping. We had the S26 launch from Samsung that came out. Things did extremely well. The month of March was actually a very strong month in spite of everything that happened over here. On the B2B side, we're starting to see a comeback. We're starting to see a lot in the deal flow and looking forward to a couple of good months ahead.
Nice to hear that March and April have still continued buoyancy, at least for you. Sanjay, over to you now. Would you like to give us a short, I think you have quite a diverse day-to-day job role, but give us an idea how you manage Cosmos, how you manage TIE, how you manage the angel investor business, and the high points over the last 60 days. Go ahead, please.
Thank you very much for having me, Arun. Cosmos Insurance is my day job. That's my full-time job. I'm the CEO here. We're in a 36-year-old insurance brokerage operating out of Dubai and Sharjah. We primarily focus on retail and SME and a bit of corporate business here and there. TIE Dubai is a volunteer work that I do. As part TIE's focus is on fostering community, helping the startup ecosystem, helping small businesses and startups grow, evolve, and support the economy. And that's really what we do at TIE Dubai. Angel Spark is an offshoot, it's collective rather, I would say, of like-minded individuals who want to support and invest in startups across, not only across the Middle East, but we are actually across the globe, where we would invest in any company which makes sense to us, and we take it from there. The key differentiator with Angel Spark is we will give you an in-principle decision right after the pitch. We're not going to waste your time. We're not going to take some time. The decision will be given right away. And if you commit to invest, it will be a commitment subject to due diligence and checking and fact checking, but we will do it right away. That's how it works. With regard to the current situation, March has been an extremely good month for us as well. Whilst things slowed down on the retail side, on the corporate side, things really picked up with political violence insurance and other products related to protect businesses. So that's how it worked well for us. April, we're still waiting for the final numbers, but they still look pretty good.
Very interesting. Thank you. Thank you, Sanjay. Thank you, Ashish. Let's go to one of the three questions which we want to deep dive into. So last 60 days on face value, we thought would be something that we went through quite quickly, but in hindsight now, when you look forward, probably be more disruptive than even the COVID. It has the potential if things go the way they are. But let's look at your businesses. Obviously, you mentioned in a summary the March and April were strong months. But overall, what have been the opportunities? What have been the challenges that you've seen for regional businesses, your customers? Are there any learning points that have emerged specific to your type of business? Your thoughts, Ashish?
So I think we expected this year to be a challenging year before everything that happened on February 28th, just because we were looking at the DRAM situation and the rising cost of memory. So from a supply chain perspective, from a cost perspective, we were expecting a lot of disruption this year, and we were expecting it to be difficult. And we were already sitting and talking to clients and customers, and especially where we've got longer tail B2B commitments, saying, guys, we need to decide quickly on what we want to do, because you may not get the stock, you may not get it at the same price. Lead times are going up and very volatile, and we need to be quicker. We were fortunate in the sense that at the end of February, we took a fairly big stock position on various categories of products, whether that be mobiles, whether that be laptops, whether that be TVs. We were sitting on a fair amount of stock at that stage, and that actually is what helped us through March and April. Because suddenly when all the supply chains got disrupted, at least we had stock on ground. Now, the cost of maintaining that stock on ground is a different question, and that's where Sanjay came in with the insurance later on. But we at least had that with us. And I think the other thing that sort of helped us, though it wasn't intended to help us, was a lot of the vendors who had stock sitting over here in Jablali couldn't ship out, so they were shipping in country. So that was the extra buffer of stock that came in. So from a supply chain perspective, I think that was the thing that saved us at that point of time. Now, for categories that come in by sea freight, that is largely televisions, that is home appliances, that's been a lot tougher. And the incoming shipments at the moment are still going to be a challenge. We're getting into a World Cup season where the FIFA World Cup is normally a big season for TV sales. We're thinking about, do we have enough stock coming in? But at the same time, we also see some people coming in and investing on the bigger TVs already at this point of time. So we've even seen the 115-inch TVs, 98-inch TVs start to move both in B2B as well as in retail. So there is the anticipation that people want to get the stock as quick as they can on that end. On the B2B front, it's been a slightly different story. It's been about March was a lot quieter because there was a lot of uncertainty at that point of time. A lot of the people we work with weren't necessarily in the office. Decision making had slowed. As we moved into the later part of April, we started to see a lot of people coming back into town, and we started to see a lot more conversations. Now, there is obviously some areas that take a little more precedence at this stage. Anything around safety, security, public safety takes a lot more importance. We've seen definitely the people that are out there helping us at the moment have a lot more in terms of demands that they need. So we've been catering to a lot of that demand where we can. But going forward as well, I think it's a question that we know certain segments like security are going to get more and more important. The cybersecurity side, I'm sure you will cover in a lot of detail with many others who are experts in that. But even in terms of physical surveillance technologies, I think there's a lot more of that where there is going to be room to grow going forward. And a lot of our focus has been moving into those type of areas at this moment.
Fantastic, great. Any learning points that were shared from your customers to you? You did mention about the future supply chain and certain types of B2B products, but anything else that you found coming out strongly from your customers?
We work also in the digital manufacturing space. We supply some equipment in that area. We work with a company called Zund, which is from Switzerland, which does digital cutting machines. Typically, we were selling to sign makers in the graphics market, but we had started selling to other segments such as aviation, shipbuilders, oil and gas for gasket cutting. And we started to see a lot of people now locally and within the region come back with inquiries who are related to areas where the Make in UAE or the Make Local initiatives have been growing as well, because they're seeing a lot of that demand of wanting to insource a lot of the manufacturing in region and in country and take care of that. So we're in fact getting orders for that. And this is where you've got equipment which is not light or easy at times, these machines. And people saying, can you air freight it in for us? Because we want to get it as far as possible, as quick as possible. and make sure we can set up and start running. So we are starting to see demand like that. And I think we will start to see a lot more of that as the region gets a little more self-reliant in terms of what it can do itself.
Great point over there about in-country manufacturing, because obviously when global supply chains and external supply chains are impacted, you do want at least on a smaller scale things to move forward. Sanjay, let's come to you. Now, the same question over here, that last 60 days must have obviously been a learning point for your customers, for you, for your services, for something requiring a lot more attention, something requiring a lot less attention. How would you summarize the last 60 days from your point of view?
Last 60 days have been interesting, to say the least. Our retail business and our retail customers have started to slow down, delay their decisions to renew their car insurance policies. For example, they want to use the entire grace period. So they're trying to push the decision away as far as possible. The thing that we learned a lot during this month was about a new product called political violence insurance, which basically covers warehouses and buildings and property from the debris damage, which is not covered in the standard policy. So that for us has helped a lot and picked up quite a bit. So that kind of compensated on the other side of business. Cargo business, for example, came to a complete stop for obvious reasons. It's difficult for cargo to come here in any case. Now it's starting to flow again via the green routes, via Muscat and Jeddah and Oman. So that's where we're seeing activity starting to pick up again.
Just to clarify for our viewers here, when you say political violence insurance, this is the insurance where there is no force majeure clause and it steps in as additional coverage, or how would you define this?
See, the standard property policy excludes war or warlike operations. This policy covers those things. So it effectively takes care of that exclusion. Prices obviously were very volatile. In some cases, the prices were only valid for 24 hours. And now it's become a lot more stable and a lot cheaper. But during the peak, it was interesting where we had to quote and the prices were literally just valid for an hour, for 24 hours. The client didn't make a decision, the prices changed.
Quite an interesting solution for that time of the external situation. Let's go forward to a very important thing that's happening. And you must have also noticed that AWS, which is a hyperscaler cloud, was actually impacted with the same thing which you just mentioned, Sanjay, which is debris. Now, so this is the first time that a large-scale IT company has been in the war zone and has been impacted. But this actually brought into focus the resilience, which we used to describe as a technology challenge, which had business continuity, disaster recovery, data management, and so on, moving into something called physical resilience. Now, I think, Sanjay, you would have actually experienced this face on with this policy that you just mentioned. But if I was to ask both Ashish and you, from the feedback of your end customers, from your own experience in managing business, how is this definition of resilience? How would you actually define it today? And something that is valid for these type of conflicts, which are regional, global, changing quite fast. How should we actually define resilience? And is there a technology element to this where you must have a certain amount of technology to ensure resilience really works? Ashish, your thoughts first. Go ahead.
I was glad to be at a session last week at the Dubai Chamber of Commerce where His Excellency Abdullah bin Tub, the Minister of Economy, was speaking. And he actually said, I think we are not at resilience, we're at resilience plus. That is the UAE. We've grown above the level of resilience at this point of time in terms of what we're doing over here. The AWS incident was unfortunate. I don't think there have been too many times in the past that you've had that many AWS centers go off at one time, not only in the UAE, but also in Bahrain, which was a backup site for many places. And then that got to a change in terms of thinking, also what the government allowed in terms of having data centers offshore as well. So hosted in Europe or other places, and they immediately made that change possible. But we also saw how dependent we are on everything digital when suddenly not only banking apps, but even your day-to-day e-commerce sites and shopping and everything else was getting impacted as a result of that. And in times like this, we're a lot more dependent on these services. And I think where we're starting to see the conversation change is on-prem is again becoming sexy. On-prem is again becoming a conversation that is starting to happen. We're starting to see a lot more conversations where a lot of our customers are coming back to us and talking about on-prem. And those who were slow to move from on-prem to being in the cloud are now saying, yeah, we were better off being on-prem, but it also means you need to have that much more in terms of disaster recovery. So we're seeing a lot of our clients coming back to us and talking about additional offsite facilities, additional control rooms, additional disaster recovery centers. We do, for example, the LED screens. We work with Hikvision in the region to do the screens for control rooms. And we're starting to see a lot of inquiries on that coming in where they're saying maybe one disaster recovery site isn't enough. We need a second or a third. And to spread those out geographically as well. We're looking at it from the perspective that they're looking at different forms of power coming in. So renewables also will be a lot more important, apart from just your regular wired electricity connection, when we were worried about that. So I think that we're looking at it from a country perspective in terms of having those different avenues available and saying, how do we work around that? The other part we know is supply chains can work in through different ways. Losing Jebel Ali port is massive. Losing Khalifa port is massive. But ports like Khor Fakkan, which were largely underutilized all this time, have had to step in and have had to take on a lot of the load. Working with the ports in Oman's Sohar and Salalah, we've seen suddenly how things can come in through the Indian Ocean. And I think probably it's one of those questions of looking at those solutions as long-term part of our planning going forward. We've seen the importance of trucking and logistics as well. And the fact that probably logistics has to improve and trucking has to improve. And like I said, we're moving into a logistics business. We're looking at the inland transportation in a much more serious way, saying, how do we set up our new facility to handle bigger trailers? And trailers are coming from other countries because they've got different specifications. So there's a lot of thinking that we need to do, and a lot of things, as you get into hindsight, you look at. Food security, of course, has been a major area of concern as well. We've seen, fortunately, everything over here well stocked. But the question in the long term is going to be, what is the cost of all of this? Freight costs have gone up, oil prices have gone up. Even if nothing else changes, there is still a risk factor that we pay for and an excess freight factor that we're paying for. And we need to look at all of that, as well as the varied lead times that we have to also contend with at this stage. So it probably means having a little more in terms of stock locally and investing on that. And that means working capital investment that goes in. So there is a lot of things that have to be considered. And I think this is where the banking sector and others are now looking in and saying, how do we support clients at this time? Because they do see the same thing as well.
Really interesting stuff over there, especially like the part about the additional power requirements coming in from renewables. I think some of the countries, the global leaders now have significant amount of renewable and therefore are more self-reliant. So I think that's a great point. I think the inland logistics and planning for that with the larger trailers and all that, again, absolutely valid. And then the additional cost of resilience. In fact, even taking the cloud example, if you're going to use multiple clouds and multiple zones, the cost of resilience.
We saw customs changing their rules overnight in terms of making goods move. We saw the Etihad rail suddenly flip a switch and they say, okay, we're now starting it early. So at least goods can move that way. And I think this is really where we see this region at its best. Whenever there's a crisis, we don't stop and panic. We say, let's work through this and find the best way out.
Great point over there. I like this relationship between agility and resilience. Not all countries, not all nations can do that. And I think the UAE has definitely shown the ability to bounce from one side to the other to make sure everything works. So Sanjay, coming to your side again, you've been in the fray and under pressure for those last 60 days, as you mentioned, through all those multiple types of services, day-to-day validity and other things. But if you were to look at from the insurance side, what is required? Ashish mentioned some very interesting things about additional clauses of insurance and working capital and other things. But if you were to look at it from your side, how does insurance actually work to make things more resilient, more agile, if I can put it like that? Your thoughts on that? Go ahead.
Unfortunately, the insurance industry is not very agile. We move very slowly. We're a traditional industry and they usually do a wait and watch, which is what you're seeing right now with the war rates, the increase in hull premiums, the increase in war premiums coming into this region. This is going to continue and be difficult, not for the next 2 months. It will be difficult for the next 2 years or 3 years. It's a very slow wait and watch. If the ceasefire holds, if the peace talk holds or the agreement holds, we do not know. So we need to wait and see, wait and watch. So for those reasons, at least on the larger scale, things move slowly. But on the other side, like you mentioned, with all the cyber issues that are coming across, whilst they've had attacks whilst they've had debris fall on various data centers, the quantum and the volume of cyber attacks have also increased significantly. Right. And that's where, like Ashid mentioned about cybersecurity, which is something that has been working really well. We get regular notifications from the central bank about cyber attacks and asking us to upgrade our systems, watch for this, watch for that. So the government has been proactive, not on the back foot, on the front foot, trying to help both the businesses and the country manage this difficult situation. So cyber insurance is something that has picked up. And again, we're seeing a lot more inquiries coming in on that. So right now, the industry is working hard on these things. But the traditional products like marine cargo, hull, and those insurance, those things are going to move very slowly.
Sanjay, just to clarify on cyber insurance, is this available from you? Is there any particular type of insurance or insurance brokers that companies need to approach for getting this done? Because we heard about it in the past from those would essentially be from cybersecurity companies themselves who extend cyber insurance. But I think what you're saying is a much more broader type of insurance. Just can you update us on what is the type of policies and how anybody can get them?
Right now, cyber insurance is primarily a B2B product. It's a business product. It is meant to protect loss of data, fixing the problem, plugging a hole if that happens, the PR nightmare that comes after loss of data. And it covers all of those things that whatever a business might need when that situation does happen. In some cases, it also covers dealing with the blackmailers or the ransom threat that comes your way. So it's immediate IT support to plug a problem, to resolve the problem, and get your business back up and running. And that is available across the board. Any good quality insurance broker will be able to assist you with it.
Thanks for the clarification. Because obviously, most companies believe that cyber insurance is something which is not readily available. But I think what you're saying is that it does cover at least 2-3 aspects of the whole incident, which is remediation, public relations, the triage, and of course, dealing with the cyber criminals, which is a specialized job. Thanks for that. Now, let's go to the last part, which is that technology, obviously, from the conventional sense, helps businesses and has been helping businesses to become more efficient, more productive, and more predictable, and so on. But looking forward, based on your experiences, how can some of these newer technologies like AI and automation, and in your case, the newer models of risk management, which try to give more predictability, how can these actually help in regional businesses becoming more resilient? Any thoughts on that, Ashish? Go ahead, please.
No, I think what we're seeing is definitely a lot of the language models getting a lot better and a lot more intelligent in terms of day-to-day use. A ChatGPT and a Claude were vastly different 2 years ago to what they are today. They're so much more superior in terms of what they can do. But the underlying fact is you need to have the data. And you need to have the data in a format in which you can use it to do anything meaningful with any sort of LLM or any sort of AI tool. And I think this has been an area of growth that has come in for a lot of businesses over here, in that you need to be able to marry the different data sources that are there. I think the challenge most businesses have got is that they have different forms of information coming in different places, but not necessarily linked to each other. And while a lot of the AI engines can do it, the underlying fact is you need to find some way of making sense of the links between them. Then only are you able to do something meaningful out of it. And I think this has been the bigger thing that we're starting to see. A lot more organizations that are talking on that, where they're recognizing the fact that a CRM has to talk to a point of sale, has to talk to an e-commerce engine, has to talk to a logistics engine, has to talk to a loyalty program, has to talk to various things that are there to make sure that everything works well. And then you're doing things a little more intelligently. We've been talking about personalization for years now. We were never quite there. We kept saying we were personalizing, but we never really personalized anything. And I think we're coming to a point where a lot more of that is happening. We're seeing the importance of where chatbots are coming in now, where chatbots are getting a lot more smarter and a lot more people have got confidence dealing with a chatbot than with an actual person over the phone at times, because they know if the chatbot has got access to the right information about the person, it can actually help them in the right way instead of someone starting from scratch on the phone saying, okay, now tell me again what the problem was. And when did you call last? And what was the other issue that you had? So we're starting to see a lot of that. I think I wear a Whoop. Even your Whoop today knows a lot more about you. And then you can converse on the Whoop app, on your recovery, on your sleep, on everything else. And it'll sometimes come back and ask you, you said you had a muscle ache 3 days ago. How are you feeling now? So it's even checking up on you to see how your parameters are based on that. And I think we're going to see a lot more of this going forward. Any of the day-to-day tools we're using, if you've been using even as a small and medium business, something like a Tally or a Zoho, you're starting to see the AI part of that come in. You're starting to see it with the bigger ERP systems. You're seeing it with any other system you do in. There is an AI part that is starting to come in. And I think this is the way forward. It's all been about user experience at the end of the day. I think we should never forget the user in all of this. And whatever can make that user's experience that much more better, whether it be an internal user, an external user, we're seeing the benefits come out in definitely all of those cases.
Great points over there. I think your point is absolutely valid. The LLM and the AI agentic stuff getting more and more smarter, and people getting a bit more confidence in using them, which can go a long way in making enterprises more resilient in that sense. So Sanjay, coming to you, obviously a completely different market perspective that you have, but just link it up with TIE also, what are the initiatives there to make AI more available and more understood by the startups? And of course, in your business, how do you see your customers actually improving their resilience through technology adoption, especially the cyber insurance and other cybersecurity? Go ahead, please. Your thoughts on that.
At Cosmos Insurance, we are actively investing in AI more to augment the output from our employees, help them work better, more efficient. More or less, the aim is to increase output per employee, right? So we're helping them do their work faster, trying to remove mundane, repetitive tasks and help them figure out things, how to move ahead. AI is also helping us with a couple of interesting ways, because in the middle of April, the central bank asked us to stop using instant messages for business purposes. So we can no longer use WhatsApp to discuss a policy with a customer, right? So that's again where AIs came in. It helped us even figure out a solution, figure out what to do, how to do, and now we're in the process of executing the said solution, and of which AI is also going to be a big part of, where it will be constantly monitoring the chats that our employees are having with our customers just to make sure that we are compliant with the regulation. So it's helping us in a number of ways. With regard to Thai Dubai and Angel Spark, you will be surprised at the number of AI-related startups that we're seeing. There is a big jump in that, and they are all focused on efficiency, growing, improving overall customer benefit, customer experience, and speeding up things across the board. We are seeing AI getting used to do monitoring, AI getting used to increase access, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I think the way you're seeing it with TIE, because we're both in TIE, we see the fact that you don't have any roadblocks. When you are in an established business and you're trying to introduce something new, there's always going to be some sort of friction point. When you're starting with a clean sheet of paper and you're a startup, there is no friction point. It's whatever you define and you say, this is the way forward and this is how we start. So there's actually a lot more acceptance. There's a lot more about being leaner and being smarter in terms of how you do things. And if a founder is a founder and he has to do a job or she has to do a job of 4 or 5 people, AI is definitely a friend in that case.
Great point over there. So I'm sure TIE taking the initiative, and I'm quite sure it's a good incubation area for AI to start at the foundations. But now we're coming to the end, and I'd like to close this session of CXOWIRE. But before I do that, Ashish, any key takeaways, any best practices, anything you'd like to recommend businesses to watch out for in the next coming months, because conflict's still there, external macro environment is still challenged. Anything which you would like to recommend? Go ahead, please.
No, I think the bottom line is keep talking. Keep talking to whoever you can. I think this is one thing that we do well in this country, in that we can talk to government, we can talk to other businesses, we can talk to people in our industry, and we can work through solutions together. There's very few places in the world where people trust the government the way they do over here. There's the respect that we get from the government, there's the respect we give the government as well. And it works both ways. But also with industry peers, it's exactly the same thing. And I think the bottom line is everyone is trying to get through this together. No one wants to see anyone put down. We know certain sectors are going to be more difficult than others. We know some businesses are going to struggle more than others. There are probably going to be some that don't make it in this time. But the fact is we need to be able to help out each other at this point of time. And sometimes all someone needs is someone to listen to them. And I think we should lend that ear wherever we can. There is a lot of toxicity if you let it get to you, or there can be a lot of positivity. It's up to you in terms of how you want to do that.
Great points over there, Ashish. Talking definitely reduces toxicity and improves positivity. So I think that's absolutely a valid point over there, especially the trust, 360-degree trust, which we have in this country. Sanjay, coming to you, from your point of view, any type of, you know the paperwork better than anyone else, you know the systems better than anyone else. Anything which you would like to recommend over there that businesses should look out or adopt or plan for? Go ahead.
A disaster recovery plan is something that you should always put in place, which fortunately our government has always had in place even before the disasters occurred. So they know exactly what to do, not think what to do when a disaster occurs. So they are prepared, and that always will help any business. A plan should be discussed, written, kept, and reviewed maybe once in 3 years. It doesn't require constant attention, but it does require you to update it and review it so that you are also ready for the disaster whenever it occurs. But Ashish hit the nail on the head. Talking and talking is what will really helps everybody. We talk to all the stakeholders, including our competitors and other insurance brokers. We work together. We're all trying to collectively figure out how to deal with the WhatsApp ban. We are trying to figure out how we can make things easier and better for us and the industry as a whole.
I think a lot of people were caught blindsided here because we had very strong assumptions about certain things. And when suddenly the ports don't quite operate in the way they do, other factors come up that you never expected, you need to start questioning your assumptions. And I think working through that, and I think as part of the disaster recovery plan that Sanjay said, is also looking at all those different things that you assumed and say, why am I assuming that on a regular basis?
Great stuff, Ashish, great stuff, Sanjay. And I think questioning the fundamentals of previous fundamentals and planning for new fundamentals, part of is exactly what the situation is making us do, whether it's technology, whether it is operations, whether it is business. I'd like to thank both of you once again for those brilliant knowledge sharing and your opinions and recommendations. And I'd like to close the session now. So on behalf of Global Enterprise Connect, I thank all the attendees for listening to this episode of CXO Newswire and look forward to engaging with you once again. So thank you very much.